Dealers are practically begging buyers to take trucks they once marked up like gold. What looks like a sale isn't a bargain, it's a warning. Entire lots are packed with unsold vehicles, families are walking away, and factories kept churning out machines nobody wanted. Prices that once soared above $80,000 are now tumbling to $20,000. So what happened? How did the market flip so fast, and how far can this collapse go before it shatters not just wallets, but communities, jobs, and the very identity of the American pickup truck? For years, pickup trucks were the crown jewels of American automakers. Families, contractors, and enthusiasts chased them like prized possessions, paying prices that rivaled luxury sedans. Top trims routinely climbed above $80,000, and dealers bragged about long waitlists and sky-high markups. But in just a few months, everything changed. Those same trucks are now appearing at distressed sales for as low as $20,000. The crash wasn't caused by a single event. It was a perfect storm. Manufacturers kept their factories running at full speed, convinced buyers would always line up, while rising interest rates made monthly payments unmanageable for ordinary families. As demand shrank, inventories piled up, and dealers suddenly faced a new reality. Every unsold truck was a daily financial burden. Floor plan interest alone could cost $50 or more per vehicle each day. Take Mike, a contractor in the Midwest. When his old truck's transmission failed, he walked onto a lot and spotted a nearly new model listed at $12,000 off. It felt like luck had struck. But as he began signing papers, hidden fees appeared, his trade-in value collapsed, and a whispering advisor warned of long waits for replacement parts. What seemed like salvation quickly turned into a trap. Behind every discount, behind every showroom smile, dealers were silently bleeding. And if overproduction opened the wound, the next section shows how the electric truck gamble poured salt in it, turning a bad situation into a full-blown crisis. The electric revolution was supposed to be the future, a clean, powerful reinvention of the American pickup. Ford promised the F-150 Lightning would transform job sites and family driveways, while General Motors rolled out electrified Silverados and GMCs, claiming these trucks would outshine anything before. Executives expected endless waiting lists, and buyers were told the future was already here. Reality, however, had a very different story to tell. Lots sat half empty, skeptical buyers hesitated, and production cuts became inevitable. The Lightning, once hailed as a workhorse, revealed hidden weaknesses. Tow a heavy load and the range plunged by nearly half. Cold weather made matters worse, cutting distance by 40% or more. Trucks meant to be reliable partners for work and daily life suddenly felt like expensive, immobile ornaments sitting in driveways. Dealers who stocked aggressively were left bleeding money. Each unsold Lightning drained $40 to $50 per day in interest, and resale values sank faster than battery percentages in a snowstorm. Customers who once believed in the promise of electricity now felt burned. Sarah, a Michigan electrician, summed it up, "I thought I was buying the future. Instead I bought a $75,000 science experiment." Her frustration echoed across communities where hope in electrics had curdled into suspicion. Corporate managers whispered about production adjustments and refreshes, but the message was clear. Demand had failed to meet expectations, and the gamble on electric trucks had backfired. And while the EV market stumbled, another disaster was unfolding, this time in the realm of ultra-luxury trucks. Luxury trucks were supposed to be untouchable symbols of prestige, status machines that would prove American dominance in both technology and design. The GMC Hummer EV was pitched as a six-figure halo vehicle, and the Escalade IQ followed closely behind, with price tags rivaling European exotics. Dealers and executives believed these trucks would fly off the lots, a testament to innovation and excess. Instead, reality delivered a harsh lesson. The Hummer EV, weighing more than some dump trucks, devoured $400 tires and struggled to deliver even a fraction of its promised range under real-world conditions. Buyers who could afford six figures quickly realized they preferred vehicles that actually worked. One dealer admitted that a single unsold Hummer cost nearly $19,000 in floor plan interest. "At this point," he confessed, "I would rather give it away than keep paying to store it." The Escalade IQ faced a similar fate. Demand evaporated almost immediately, leaving dealers with expensive, immobile inventory. What was meant to embody prestige now became a monument to miscalculation. Customers walked past these vehicles, shaking their heads at the absurdity of paying mansion-level prices for machines that couldn't even guarantee convenience. And while luxury trucks sat idle, bleeding money and status, the workhorse pickups, the trucks people relied on every day, were quietly starting to fail in ways that would shake trust in the entire market. For generations, diesel pickups carried a reputation for invincibility. Farmers, contractors, and builders trusted them to haul, tow, and endure countless miles of punishment without complaint. That trust, however, has been shattered. Modern emission systems and complex electronics have turned once reliable machines into fragile, expensive liabilities. Trucks that were once considered bulletproof now arrive at service bays with injector failures at just 30,000 miles, limp mode glitches triggered by minor sensors, and repair bills climbing into the thousands. Fleet managers have felt the impact most sharply. In Ohio, one company purchased a dozen heavy-duty diesels, only to see 8 sidelined simultaneously by emission failures. "I am financing more than $500,000 in trucks I cannot even use," one manager said bitterly. Everyday owners feel the pain too. Sarah from Colorado bought a Ram Cummins that still had power but saw her transmission and emission systems collapse shortly after the warranty expired. In just 2 years, she spent nearly $7,000 on repairs. "My old Ram never saw the inside of a shop," she sighed. "This one lives there." Dealers, saddled with expensive stock, faced a nightmare. Buyers knew the risks, word spread fast, and even trucks priced at $70,000 required deep discounts to sell. What was once a reliable work machine had become a financial and operational liability, shaking the very foundation of trust between buyer and manufacturer. And if overproduction and mechanical failures weren't enough, the industry's obsession with innovation would soon introduce even more complexity, and even more headaches. Automakers promised innovation, efficiency, and power, but in many cases, their clever fixes became ticking time bombs. Cylinder deactivation, designed to save fuel by shutting down half the engine's cylinders during light driving, sounded brilliant on paper. In practice, it became a disaster. Lifters failed with alarming regularity, dragging camshafts down and leaving owners with ruined engines at barely 60,000 miles. The fallout was swift. Buyers who had invested in $80,000 trucks were suddenly facing $4,000 to $6,000 repair bills. Service departments overflowed with complaints, and word spread like wildfire through contractor forums and social media. A technology meant to prove innovation instead revealed arrogance and eroded trust. But cylinder deactivation was just the beginning. Automakers doubled down on complexity with hybrid systems, turbocharging, and other performance plus efficiency solutions. Toyota's twin-turbo hybrid engines, long celebrated for reliability, soon suffered timing chain issues, overheating turbos, and limp mode failures while towing. Ford's PowerBoost hybrid faced similar problems: battery cooling failures, electrical faults, and repairs that ordinary mechanics couldn't handle. Truck buyers weren't looking to beta test experimental technology, they were buying workhorses. Each limp mode incident, each hybrid failure, and each turbo meltdown turned into cautionary tales that spread across communities that had once relied on trucks as untouchable tools. Meanwhile, dealers were left with aging hybrid and turbo models, each day draining $40 to $50 in floor plan interest while buyers demanded steep discounts to take the risk. And if full-size trucks were already haunted by fragile complexity, mid-size trucks were about to inherit the same problems, just in smaller, seemingly simpler packages. Mid-size trucks were supposed to be simple, practical alternatives, cheaper, easier to park, and reliable. Instead, they inherited the worst traits of their full-size siblings while carrying nearly the same price tags. Buyers who thought they were escaping complexity quickly discovered they had traded one set of problems for another. The Chevrolet Colorado and GMC Canyon suffered from transmission shutters, rear differential failures, and electronics that glitched like unfinished beta software. Ford's Ranger reintroduced turbo and transmission problems in a smaller, costlier-to-service package. Even the Nissan Frontier struggled with 9-speed transmissions that felt half-baked and dual-clutch systems that wore out far too quickly. One Nevada owner described his Colorado as a $38,000 truck that behaves like a $3,000 beater. Testimonials like that spread fast in contractor and enthusiast communities, devastating resale values and slowing new sales. For dealers, the nightmare multiplied. Mid-size trucks, once reliable sellers, now lingered on lots for 90 days or more, accumulating carrying costs and eroding profits. Marketing campaigns failed to mask the reality. Smaller trucks didn't mean simpler problems. They concentrated complexity into a package buyers had expected to trust. And yet mid-size disappointments were only one part of the puzzle. The deeper collapse came from trucks that were abandoned entirely, leaving buyers stranded with outdated platforms and unsupported models. The crash became most visible in trucks that were never meant to survive. Nissan's Titan, once hyped as a full-size contender, quietly received its corporate death sentence after years of underwhelming sales. Dealers were left holding orphaned inventory that depreciated faster than anything else on the lot. Buyers quickly learned the harsh truth: discontinued trucks mean scarce parts, brutal resale values, and little long-term support. A Titan sitting for 180 days on a lot isn't an opportunity, it's a financial anchor, bleeding thousands in interest before a desperate sale finally clears it. Ram tried a different tactic with the Classic, an older platform recycled alongside newer models. The idea was to capture budget-conscious buyers while using paid-for tooling. Instead, the Classic highlighted just how far behind the design had fallen. Rough rides, outdated interiors, and persistent lifter problems made it obvious. Yesterday's truck was being sold at today's prices. Customers balked, inventory stacked up, and dealers scrambled to move stock that simply wouldn't sell. Even Hyundai's Santa Cruz, marketed as a crossover pickup, faltered. Its dual-clutch transmission proved unreliable, the bed too small for real work, and the market positioning too confusing to attract loyalty. Vehicles designed for tiny niches became millstones once demand softened. While these abandoned experiments rotted on lots, the bigger story emerged. Ordinary buyers were now paying the price, financially, culturally, and socially, as the collapse rippled through communities and families once tied to the American pickup dream. For decades, owning a pickup truck was more than transportation, it was aspiration. Families saved for years, contractors signed loans believing their trucks would pay for themselves, and young drivers saw ownership as a rite of passage. But with interest rates soaring and sticker prices climbing past $80,000, aspiration quickly turned into suffocation. Monthly payments that once felt manageable ballooned from $400 to nearly $1,200, stretching household budgets already squeezed by groceries, housing, and rising costs. Repair bills added insult to injury. Cylinder deactivation failures, turbo replacements, and complex emission systems meant that even relatively new trucks carried repair costs rivaling mortgage payments. Contractors missed jobs while waiting weeks for parts, losing thousands of dollars in income they couldn't afford to sacrifice. Families who once viewed trucks as security now saw them as financial traps. Meanwhile, dealers were bleeding in a different way. Every unsold truck represented roughly $50 per day in floor plan interest. Trucks sitting for 120 days could cost $6,000 before being sold. Multiply that across dozens of vehicles, and entire dealerships were drowning. Sales staff were pressured to push aging vehicles first, often offering discounts so steep they erased profit margins. Behind the smiles and handshakes, panic simmered. Corporate pressure only worsened the problem. Automakers measured dealer performance by throughput, punishing low-volume sellers even when the market had collapsed. Managers were trapped between corporate quotas and local realities, slash prices to move inventory or risk corporate retaliation. Either choice drained the bottom line. As dealers and buyers alike struggled under mounting financial pressures, the stage was set for corporate retreat and a reshaping of the truck market that would ripple far beyond dealership lots. Not long ago, automakers were betting on endless growth. Ford, General Motors, and Volkswagen poured billions into new plants, expecting demand for trucks and electric vehicles to soar. Announcements of expansions in Texas, Michigan, and Europe painted a picture of confidence and dominance. But as consumer appetite collapsed and unsold inventory piled up, reality forced a sudden retreat. Ford quietly scaled back Lightning production, citing market adjustments. General Motors delayed entire electric truck projects, pausing billions in investment until confidence returned. Volkswagen, once aiming to capture the American market with its ID series, shifted focus back to Europe and China. Aggressive expansion gave way to survival mode, with companies prioritizing margins over volume. The ripple effects were immediate. Plant shifts were cut, suppliers received fewer orders, and workers faced layoffs or reduced hours. Entire towns that had once celebrated factory openings now braced for contraction. The cultural symbol of the pickup truck began to crack. For generations, trucks weren't just vehicles, they were badges of identity. They symbolized independence, strength, and American tradition. Ads depicted cowboys, construction crews, and families conquering wide-open landscapes, all with their trucks as companions. But when ownership meant crushing debt, endless repairs, and constant uncertainty, that badge lost its shine. Neighbors now ask how long payments will last, friends worry about failing approvals, and contractors who once proudly displayed new trucks cling to older, simpler models. Reliability, not price or flash, has become the true marker of pride. Even political symbolism has shifted. Trucks once associated with patriotism and hard work now reflect corporate greed and broken promises. And with that cultural identity eroding, the stage was set for the next layer of disruption. Policy whiplash, labor leverage, and global rivals moving in to exploit the collapse. Government policy was meant to stabilize the shift to electric vehicles, but instead it added chaos. Subsidies, tariffs, and tax credits swung wildly depending on which party held power and which industries lobbied hardest. One year, buyers could claim a $7,500 federal credit for an electric truck. The next, that credit shrank or vanished entirely for vehicles assembled outside certain regions. Imported battery tariffs raised costs by thousands, only to be offset by unpredictable state-level incentives. This volatility created uncertainty across the market. Families hesitated to buy because they couldn't predict whether incentives would still exist when tax season arrived. Dealers couldn't advertise reliable out-the-door prices, and automakers found their cost structures suddenly shifting overnight. Consumers were frustrated, and confidence in the market wavered. Meanwhile, workers realized they had leverage. Production slowdowns hit first, with shifts cut from 3 to 2, temporary layoffs announced with little warning, and overtime evaporating. But unions discovered newfound power. Strikes of even 2 weeks could wreak havoc on corporate forecasts, adding millions in lost revenue to already bleeding balance sheets. Labor pushed harder for wage increases, better benefits, and guarantees of job security as the industry scrambled to manage the messy transition to electrification. Plant towns felt the impact immediately. Families wondered whether to keep mortgages, young workers debated following their parents into factory jobs, and local economies braced for contraction. Yet for the first time in decades, workers realized their importance. Management could no longer ignore demands without risking catastrophic disruption. And while labor flexed its newfound muscle, overseas rivals were sharpening their knives, ready to exploit weaknesses in a faltering domestic market. Across the Pacific, Chinese automakers saw opportunity. Companies like BYD and SAIC were preparing midsize and budget pickups that could sell far below American or European competitors. With vertically integrated supply chains and lower labor costs, these trucks could be built for as little as $15,000 and still turn a profit at $20,000. Legacy automakers, burdened with production costs of $30,000 per vehicle, suddenly looked vulnerable. These rivals aren't chasing prestige, they're targeting the middle ground that matters most: affordability. Contractors, families, and small businesses that once stretched their budgets for Fords or Chevrolets now face options that combine competitive range, solid reliability, and half the sticker price. Once tariffs or trade barriers shift, and history shows they always do, foreign pickups could flood the market, further undercutting domestic brands already struggling to survive. Europe faces similar threats. Volkswagen's slowing momentum leaves room for Chinese competitors to capture buyers seeking modern features without the luxury price. In Latin America and Africa, where affordability dominates, cheap imports could cement Chinese dominance for decades. But here's the silver lining: the market has flipped in favor of informed buyers. Knowledge is now leverage. First, look for trucks that have been sitting longer than 90 days. Every day costs dealers $40 to $50 in interest, giving you negotiation power. Second, demand written coverage for systems prone to failure, whether lifters, hybrids, or emission components. And third, compare offers aggressively. Show a manager a competitor's price, and they often fold. Buyers like Mike, who once almost walked into a trap, are now flipping the script. By walking away, demanding clarity, and refusing add-ons, ordinary people are saving $5,000 to $10,000 on trucks that would have bankrupted them a year ago. The market that once seemed overwhelming now rewards the informed and patient. In the end, this crash isn't just about prices or profits. It's about families, workers, and communities who built their lives around the promise of the American pickup truck. What was once a symbol of strength and pride is now weighed down by debt, repairs, and broken trust. But in every collapse, there's opportunity. Today, the power has shifted to the buyer. Those who understand the game, and know how to negotiate, can turn this crisis into their advantage. The real question now is, will this collapse mark the end of an American legend, or the beginning of a new chapter that redefines what a pickup truck truly means?